Welcome to part 4 of the series on irony as your superpower. I'm going to try to corner you with something slippery about life. I'll come at it from a few different angles here. Question is, what do you feel and think about this slipperiness? Is it real or an illusion? And what should we do about it? I'll start with some statements. You might be able to relate to them and yet find them both troubling and funny. I hate haters, which proves I don't hate. I reject negativity, which proves I'm not negative. I disapprove of being judgmental, which proves I'm not judgmental. I'm unreceptive to closed-mindedness, which proves I'm not closed-minded. I sneer down at arrogance, which proves I'm not arrogant. I don't like name callers, which proves I don't name call. I stiff stingy people, which proves I'm not stingy. I demand a clear alternative to black and white thinking, which proves I'm not a black and white thinker. I disapprove of people who don't realize that we're all the same, which proves I'm not like them. I won't give an inch to those who won't follow the golden rule, which proves I do follow it. I'm absolutely opposed to absolutism, which proves I'm not an absolutist. I'm prejudiced against bias, which proves I have no biases. I hate unfairness to me, which proves I'm fair-minded. As you listen to those, where does your heart go? Maybe you think, that's hypocritical. You consistently reject all hypocrisy, which proves you're not a hypocrite. Or maybe you think, well, yeah, I know it's hypocritical, but really we should hate haters, say no to negativity, disapprove of judgment, be closed to closed-mindedness, look down on the arrogant, etc. I mean, there's something to these moral principles, right? Or maybe you think some of these are word games or tricks that would resolve themselves if they were worded differently. Like you don't hate haters, you accept and forgive them because being unforgiving would be unforgivable. Or maybe you roll your eyes like, dude, sounds like you've got way too much time on your hands. Stop contemplating your contemplation of your navel. When there's ambiguity, as there is with all of those statements, we're dealing with a paradox. The classic paradox is, I'm lying, which if it's true is false, and if it's false is true. What's with that statement, which has bothered philosophers for 2,400 years? Like all paradoxes, it's self-referential and self-negating. Its output applied to itself negates itself. What do we do about paradoxes? Think about it interpersonally. An argument between people isn't necessarily a paradox, but it has the same effect. You're both negating each other. You say yes, they say no, and you're stuck unclear what to do about it. About it is a clue. When you're in an argument, the impasse will compel you to up-level and start arguing about your argument, as in this classic.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
Didn't.
Yes, I did.
Didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, this isn't an argument.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. It's just contradiction.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
It is not.
It is. You just contradicted me.
No, I didn't.
Oh, you did.
No.
You did just then.
No, nonsense.
Oh, look, this is futile.
No, it isn't.
I came here for a good argument.
No, you didn't. You came here for an argument.
Well, an argument's not the same as contradiction.
Can be.
No, it can't.
See that? They get into an argument about whether it's futile to argue about whether it's an argument. That's a question about an argument about an argument. About it. Up, out of it. Or try this. The kids are fighting. Mom comes in and says, you kids stop fighting. Each kid says the other started it. Mom says, I don't care who started it, just stop. Dad walks in and says, oh, let them fight. Mom says, but it's driving me crazy. Grandma walks in and says, you shouldn't negotiate in front of the kids. Grandpa walks in and says, dear, don't tell them how to raise the kids. Each of these levels is an argument about an argument, fighting words about a fight. And it could go on from there. Someone could walk in and say, wow, so many levels, to which someone else could say, you're wrong. It's simple, stick with the ground level issue. The kids are fighting. To which someone else could say, no, the real problem here is the grandfather. And on and on. For every argument, another argument could be made about it. About it. Up, out of it. Above it to talk about it. Call it up-leveling, or as it's also called, going meta. The joke is anything you can do, I can do meta. It's a joke and a problem. I call it the last word paradox. Having words compels humans to claim last words that further words can undermine. As such, it's a uniquely human problem because with words we can point to other words in what linguist Noam Chomsky calls merge, the ability to nest words within words. For example, referring to your argument as this in the last word declaration, oh, this is futile. The question I want to corner you with is just where do you get off? I mean that two ways. Where do we step off the level upon level pile-up in that family debate? But also, people tend to get off on where they get their jollies off on getting off the hook. For example, when someone goes meta saying, you know, stepping out of this argument, zooming up to a neutral overview, I observe that the problem isn't me, it's you. You keep claiming the last word, and the last word is my higher word, which is you don't get the last word. Them's fighting words because they're last words. In just where do you get off, just is the key word. When people say the problem is just this or just that, just means ignore all other interpretations and levels. Mine is the only perspective that counts. I get the last word. For hypocrites, the last word is whatever words get them off best, whatever words give them the most safety and freedom to do what they want without consequences. You're just trying to win, or you're just projecting. Hypocrites are absolute moral relativists, people who will shift their last word around to wherever they want it to be in the moment, saying in effect, there will never ever be a moral principle more fundamental and absolute than whatever excuse I find handy in the moment. Going meta is a problem, because where does it stop? Just where do you get off? It's also the solution sometimes. Sometimes zooming up or stepping back, you gain new insights that resolve paradoxes. And sometimes you don't want to resolve them. Think about an engine. It cycles through the same phases over and over, each phase kicking it into the next phase in a circle, or what's called a work cycle. And what do you get? You get energy channeled into functional, useful work. An engine is like a paradox. Like a liar's paradox that keeps returning itself to where it's been. And we like engines. They're useful. So while paradoxes drive us crazy, they also drive us, literally. In my work with biologist Terrence Deacon on the origins and nature of life, we argue that life itself is a paradox, though different from engines. Our homeostasis is processes pitted against each other, checks and balances that keep us cycling within a targeted range of viability. But unlike engines, our work cycles regenerate the fragile parts, whereas engines are engineered from durable parts. In us, the checks and balances pile higher and deeper, level upon level. Our self-regenerative work cycles explain not just the origins of life, but also the accumulated levels within life. For example, our transition to multicellularity, or our social checks and balances. But I digress, or go meta. I have lots more about that elsewhere if you're interested. Social checks and balances are not necessarily a good thing. MAGA is a system of checks and balances that keeps it claiming the last word through bait and switches. It's a self-ratcheting, self-affirming, self-winding movement. No matter how you shake it, it gets more wound up. Trump is running a work cycle that keeps him getting away with pretending he's always right and always gets the last word. If you like him, it proves he's right. If you hate him, it proves he's right. If it's good, it's about him. If it's bad, it's about his enemies. Conversely, if it's bad about him, it's actually good. And if it's good about his rivals or enemies, it's bad. Heads, he wins, tails, you lose. And if that doesn't work, heads, you lose, and tails, he wins. Either way, he wins, which would be some hella funny shit if it wasn't doomed to doom us to his ever-changing bait-and-switch last-word bullshit. But going meta is funny. In sitcoms, you often hear someone claim a last word followed by a laugh track. We're laughing at their hypocrisy, but also laughing with them because we can relate. We're laughing at them for sticking to whatever they want to claim as the last word, and we're laughing with them because we've been there, wanting to claim the last word. In all of these examples, you get an ambiguity about whether you're inside or outside the conflict. When you call someone a name caller, are you objecting to name calling from outside? Or are you admitting you're in it, name calling someone as a name caller? Take an ironic sitcom statement like, "That's my story and I'm sticking to it." It's up, out, or about one story, but it's also tucked right back into its own story. So which is it, inside the story, or about, or up, out of the story? And which are we, outside laughing at it, or inside laughing with it? Slippery stuff that's both a tickle and ticklish, touchy because last words are fighting words. That's my last word, deal with it. I'm dealing with it by saying no, it's not the last word. It's hard to sit calm with the sitcom quality of such meta-ness. It makes us uncomfortable, but it's also a hoot. Like Groucho Marx saying, "I'd never want to belong to a club that would have me," or, "But enough about me, let's talk about you. What do you think of me?" Most humor is like that. What do you get when you cross an elephant with a rhino? Elephino. It's both an answer within the context of the question or an exit from the question. Who's on first? What's on second? Who is both the answer to the question and a question about the question? Such in and out ambiguity is basic to the human experience, like playing peekaboo with a baby. They laugh at the in and out ambiguity. An ironic situation is one you've misread, typically by identifying the wrong level of analysis. You thought it was one situation, but zooming in or out, it turns out to be the opposite. The outcome is the reverse of what you expected. You made a good bet, and ironically it came out wrong because of some overlooked factor. You made a bad bet, and ironically it came out good because of some overlooked factor. Unintended, unexpected consequences. If only you'd gotten the right scale of analysis, which is about where you get off. And again, you can't necessarily tell. Maybe the problem was you got distracted by getting off on getting off, like you bet on the self-satisfying freedom and safety of becoming a drug addict, and now you're facing the consequences. Or maybe you got off by letting go, surrendering into self-sacrifice, and now you regret it. You gave inch after inch to someone you hoped would reciprocate, but instead they took mile after mile. In other words, we deal with the ambiguity about whether you should insist on where you get off or accommodate others where they get off. It's complicated, nested worm cans, or word cans, of wonder. You probably think of irony as a kind of humor, though it can be hard to put a finger on which kind. Irony plays with the way it's hard to put a finger on anything, even though we can't help but try. I think of irony as both the problem and the solution, the trouble with life and also how we deal with the trouble in the most healthy way we can. Irony is a lubricant, which is what humor originally meant, a fluid which can reduce friction, but can also cause friction. A troublemaker plays fast and loose with the truth. To avoid internal friction, they'll pretend truth is fiction and fiction is truth. In the process, they loosen things up for themselves while rubbing other people the wrong way. Banana peels are slippery, and so is reality. Think of what it means to slip on a banana peel. You expected solid ground that your feet could bite, friction and traction. But no, there was an overlooked banana peel, and you ended up with the reverse of what you expected. Instead of foot traction moving you forward, you're thrown back on your ass. Humorous, unless you've broken your hips and cracked your head open. Not funny at all. A better term would be dirony, dire irony. Life is an iffy, white-knuckle ride that could end tragically. It's also slapstick comedy. Ironically, people mistake irony for hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the opposite of irony. It denies life's ambiguity while exploiting it. In contrast, irony embraces ambiguity as the human condition. There's no escaping ironic situations. We can make ever better bets, but they could always turn out the reverse of what's expected. Dironically, hypocrites impose ironic situations on their enemies. That's what their bait and switch is all about. No matter what you choose, you lose. Whatever bet you place, they'll make it fail for you. The hypocrite's sole goal is to pretend they always win and you always lose. They claim different last words, whichever one gets them off. I hope I've cornered you with this confusion. I hope it gets you wondering what to do about it. In the next video, I'll talk more about that. And thanks for watching. Well, it turns out few people in the world are into as much raw introspection about the human condition as I am. And if you're one of them, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And that's another thing. I'm for hire. I do strategic consulting on dealing with life's tough judgment calls and dealing with total jerks. My email's down below. Get in touch for a free sample session. Thanks.